is home to 22 indigenous tribes.
Arizona State University's campuses are situated on the homelands of many tribal nations,
in particular the A'atam
and Pipash, and acknowledge the many indigenous communities who reside in this territory.
Skigik is the O'odham word that is now known as Phoenix, which was settled in 1881 by occupiers.
The ancestors of the A'atam, the Huhugam, created canals and utilized surrounding rivers that are the basis of the current irrigation system that feeds Skigik today.
These waterways have always been the foundation and livelihood of the residents within the valley. Throughout the past 500 years, the impact of colonialism have been detrimental to indigenous lands and languages, affecting their livelihood.
Many people who live in the Southwest are unaware of this history. Furthermore, ASU's Indigenous student community consists of over 3,000 strong,
not including faculty, staff, and alumni, who continue to thrive, educate, and advocate for the strengthening of indigenous ways of life.
As the O'odham call it, Himdak, the way of life for the O'odham, encompassing their culture, traditions, identity, and being. As O'odham and indigenous peoples,
our identity is tied to the land. Like our own bodies, we must respect and care for it, and we urge everyone to do the same.
We challenge you to educate yourself about the history and the communities who continue to thrive today.
Moving forward, it is vital to honor and respect
that you are always
on indigenous land.
Thank you. And so with that, I'd like to get started on this talk, where I'm going to be introducing the Immersive Creation Studio. As I said, it's a project that I've been working on just over a year now, producing XR learning environments at Arizona State University. I am Dr. Robert LiKamWa. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Arts, Media, and Engineering in the School of Electrical Computer and Energy Engineering. Before I really get into this, I do want to cover a few semantic details. First of all, XR. What is XR? XR is the umbrella term which encompasses virtual reality, VR, which is where you're completely replacing somebody's visual field and auditory field with a headset. And you're able to completely replace the way that they see things. You would also completely replace what they hear, as well, with a complete virtual visual and auditory field. In augmented reality, you're overlaying on top of what they are experiencing. So this is often done with smartphones and sometimes done with holographic headsets as well, where you've got the visuals on top overlaid precisely geometrically where they would be in the physical world, even though they're virtual objects. And so smartphone-based augmented reality has been a recent trend, and we're also seeing some holographic augmented reality devices as well. Mixed reality is considered kind of the spectrum between virtual and augmented reality, where you are, in addition to thinking about the visual and the sonic fields, also things that you touch, things that you feel, you smell, you otherwise sense, are mixed together inside of this virtual and real, physically real mix. And so the X term, people backronym that into extended reality, extreme reality, or other forms, but really it's just a stand-in for that first letter of reality, whether it's talking about virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality. So that's the first semantic detail I wanted to cover, is what does this XR term mean? The second semantic thing I wanted to cover is what are we talking about when we're saying producing XR learning environments? At the Immersive Creation Studio, what are we talking about with producing XR learning environments? Do we mean for learners to explore in XR? Do we mean for learners to learn through XR? Or do we mean for learners to create in XR? And the answer is a big fat yes. We want to support all of these and more of ways to connect learners into the XR ecosystem so that they can explore, they can learn, and they can create as a social act with one another, as a deep exploratory act, and as a deeply immersive act where they are contributing to the ecosystem as well. So how did this become kind of my interest? Why is this my thing? Well, for the first 4 years of me being here at ASU, which was back in 2016 when I joined, I've been working on these different projects of hardware software interfaces and data flows for visual computing systems, trying to make things energy efficient trying to make them privacy preserving, trying to make them high performance, better fidelity, making everything much richer. And we're continuing to work on some really exciting work on those fronts. We're also working on trying to augment the senses for deeper hybrid virtual physical immersion. For example, with this swish bucket, where we are able to enchant physical objects so that they have virtual affordances. So you can swing around a vessel of water and feel like there's actually water inside of there. We're working on creating Erlenmeyer flask-shaped things and stopcocks on burettes to do acid-base types of reactions as well in these virtual reality scenes, but with these physical objects as well there that you can touch and feel to really enchant that connection between you and your virtual chemistry lab. We're working on illumination estimation so that we can get better realism in the AR. Understanding your light is really important. If you're going to put physical objects next to virtual objects, you want to have the virtual objects illuminated a similar way as your physical objects so that they all look the same, right? We're working on a bunch of different ways to augment senses, including smell, including sound. So this is a really deeply exciting area as well. And we're also working on these design frameworks for data-driven AR, VR storytelling and sense making, where we're really interested in how can we use these tools to actually empower people's day-to-day, right? How do we help them tell stories around their data? For example, through these augmented reality visuals that pop out of this map. So you can have a spreadsheet programmable map data visualization where you program the data and then it pops out of this map. And anybody can program the data through a spreadsheet. Most people know Excel these days. And we're working with Mars scientists to help them understand their data, especially thinking about data that comes in at different scales. You've got orbital data coming down from satellites, and you've also got rover-based data. And making sense of both sets of data in the same environment can be really useful to understand what kinds of rocks, dirt, and minerals make up the footprint of your spectral sampling from your satellite, for example. And so these projects have been led by PhD students. The way that we're able to do so much, really, all of these things at once is really that we're using, or not using, but leading PhD students into leading teams of undergraduate and master's students and each other to really execute on these projects and to ideate on these projects and to come up with the future by pushing along these research directions. So during the first 4 years of my career here at ASU, this has been really my focus. And over the last year, it's been continuing as well. And I expect this to as well continue moving forward through this research lab, which I call Meteor Studio, which is mobile experiential technology through embedded optimization research. And it's been working really well. I really enjoy this, working on so many different projects at once, having my fingers in so many technical pies, because the students are really driving and leading the way here. But it's a lot of effort, and we're seeing that there's a lot of energy in this space of AR and VR. Right? I think that's something that's been enchanting me about it, has been not only watching how the industry is getting really excited about this stuff, which you can see all of these players here in the applications, the tools and platforms, the infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot of shiny, right? I'll admit it. There's a lot of shiny in the XR space. But beyond that, the concept that XR is able to give you the virtual affordances to put virtual materials wherever you want to put them is an incredibly powerful concept. And the question becomes, who gets to play in that space? Who gets to actually put this virtual objects, this virtual experience, these virtual stories in front of other people, right? Who gets to tell those stories? And I would say that there's been a lot of effort in this space, and the tools type of people. Tools used to be really traditionally locked into really being honestly accessible to computer scientists and computer engineers and not very many other people, because they were able to understand how to put all the detail-oriented lines of code together. These days, there's a lot more tools out there that are a lot easier to use, that you can drag and drop your media in, you can place them in wherever you want, and they appear exactly where you want. But still, who gets to use those tools now? I mean, I think our digital culture students are are more than capable of learning those tools, right? But what about the rest of the world, right? What about the people who have the stories to tell, the subject matter experts, those with the lived experiences? How do we connect all these tools and the people who want to use them with those subject matter experts and their lived experiences? So I see a huge educational opportunity here, right? To do this. It's the answer to the questions I'm posing, I believe, okay, it's an opinion, if you will, is that we should lead and inspire our students to be the next generation of creators, thinkers, and thought leaders, to operate at the intersections of the skills of the future, with social awareness, with practical embeddedness, with leadership and project management, with curiosity and creativity and confidence to actually do what I said before, which is connect with their tools, their know-how, their experience with people with stories to tell, people with needs, people with corporate interests, people with non-corporate interests. You know, there's a lot of value, there's a lot of power in being able to put virtual content wherever you want it to be and to enchant it with, we were talking about haptics, but it can be sound, it can be smell, and so on and so forth. There's so much potential there to change the world. But how, right? How do we do this? What is the opportunity here? And this has been something that in the first 4 years of my career, I was really struggling with, because the puzzle pieces that we really need to make this happen are resources like time, space, and money, and especially money for students to learn deeply. Why money? Well, because at ASU, right? I mean, I came from Rice University. It's highly privileged. You know, the students there often from fairly affluent families. Students at ASU, if you go to graduation, Michael Crow asks how many students here are working a job to make ends meet while they're doing their education. And you'll see the vast majority of students raising their hand here. These students are spending their time making ends meet. And it's very important for them to do that, to get their education and to get out on the other side without being vastly in debt, right? So how do we create opportunity by giving them jobs that relate to their future potential as well, right? Empower them with the jobs that give them the ability to operate at the intersections of the skills of the future. We will also want to provide structure for students to learn, including from each other. How can we create that structure through these resources? And how do we generate enough real projects to give students connection to reality? Now, I say these are my opinions. Actually, I think they're pretty shared opinions across our faculty at AME. I've been listening, okay, at our faculty meetings. I've been listening at our recent interviews from all the faculty searches, the director searches we're doing. And I can hear from our faculty that we want this. And I can tell you, I am right there with you. I want this too. And so I was challenged, right? How do we do this if we don't have resources? Because the thing is, we don't have resources. But enter an opportunity that fell into my lap last year, right before COVID struck. Heather Hasley and Dan Munnerly started this Learning Futures Collaboratory, which started making huge waves across the university because they were saying, we need to be envisioning education 3 to 5 years from now and building prototypes and proof of concepts to get us there. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'd like to play along too. But Heather and Dan, you know, they went around the university and said, who works on XR stuff, AR, VR stuff? Because this can be a game changer here, where you're able to put virtual content wherever you want. You can create virtual worlds for students to explore. You can create and you can make things happen. So they report directly to the University Technology Office, but they also have dotted line connections to the Office of the University Provost, Ed Plus at ASU, and so they have resources, right? They also are connected with the Knowledge Enterprise and the Learning Enterprise through their connections at the Learning Futures Collaboratory. So there's a lot of interest here from the administration as well to change the way we're thinking about education. How do we harness that for good? We want to do that by serving the members of the LFC, which will then in turn serve the ASU community, which will then serve the vast swath of faculty, staff, and students, learners. Ultimately, that's what we want to do. We want to empower the future here, right? So how do we do that? Well, we need to have our values well understood, right? We need to understand what our values are. We want to make learning inclusive and accessible to all. We want learners to be explorers and creators. We want learners to be self-determined agents of their own learning. This one is somewhat of a hard pill to swallow for us professors who feel like we know what's best for the students. Sometimes, oftentimes, come on. But sometimes learners should have some self-determined agency of their own learning, right? And can we make learning a social act as well, where they learn from each other? These aren't necessarily novel, right? Again, I think that a lot of our faculty are gonna like say, yeah, sure, what's new here, Robert? We know this already. But to put them crisply here, and the way that Dan and Heather put this crisply, really actually got me onto their mission of, yes, we need to make this happen. And the question is, how? And what kind of problems should we be looking at? What kind of problems should we be working on? And so they were saying, well, the way that we can figure out what these problems are, and the way that we can approach these problems, and the way that we can make the scaffolding work is that we can do research on what are the big problems here. We can form partnerships across the university and beyond the university, including with technology partners, but also including with partnerships with departmental units. We can build a community around it, and then that will let us have this creation and building, and we can curate and personalize and distribute learning to the masses. We can modify curriculum, integrate it into curriculum, and make these big changes happen. And I mean, their mission is challenging. They're thinking 3 to 5 years from now. Can we do this in 3 to 5 years? I mean, that's a huge challenge. So one of the so these are the things that they're talking about, and the scaffolding that they want to use to make things happen. But then the question is, what is the first problem that they should go after? And the provost's office was really considering that unenrollment is one of these big problems. Parroting the ASU charter, right? ASU measures itself not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes, right? That's the first part of it. Actually, the first part is ASU is a public research university. But the second part of it is measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes, right? It's a huge part of it. But it follows by saying, and how we help them succeed, right? We need to help these people that we let into the university succeed, and we need to understand why they are not, right? What is causing them to unenroll? And the provost's office has been running these studies to try to understand what's going on here. There's health and financial issues. There's challenges forming relationship and belonging. There's academic struggle. There's lack of direction. They've run some really interesting, poignant statistics to understand why are people leaving. And it really boils down to these sorts of things. So now enter Dan and Heather again, and they're saying, well, maybe XR can do something about that. And they have a lot of really shiny slides actually of showing how XR does allow people to emotionally engage with narrative. It allows them to emotionally engage with each other, emotionally, socially, deeply, because they're able to put things in the right places. So can we create these affordances of digital immersive environments for ASU students in ASU 101 that can give them these senses of belonging, to give them the ability to see themselves at ASU and allow for the acculturation before arrival, give them the emotional connection to ASU, and to help them envision the future of where they belong beyond ASU as well. We want to show them graduating, give them that feeling of what it means to graduate, give them the feeling of immersing themselves in careers and future paths and understanding why the heck they are here, and connecting that coursework of the why the heck they are here, of, well, the heck that they're in, to the future goals that they would enter into, right? So this is something that Dan and Heather are selling to the provost's office, right? Provost office feeling that this is quite good. But the other question is, well, how do we make this not feel like it's just ASU propaganda in ASU 101? Which should, honestly, if you ask most ASU 101 students, they feel like it is. The answer to that is to actually have community-driven involvement, to ask students, faculty, alumni, community to actually participate in the creation process as well, and to have it be part of the ethos that we involve the community in what we do as well. We create platforms that would engage these people. And so to that end, Dan and Heather went out and they ran a bunch of design charrettes across the ASU community, tons of people in these rooms, and they derived initial projects to do from these design charrette sessions. Just tons of workshops, tons of charrettes. Sometimes they felt like wastes of time, but then when you look back on it, it was like, oh, actually there was some joint meaning to all of it, right? But they developed a set of pilot projects to execute on and a development timeline, which started in March 2020. And they asked different XR folks to see who wanted to be involved. A lot of people were busy. I raised my hand, said, oh, I'll help. You know, I enjoy building XR stuff. I enjoy teaching XR stuff. And Mina, who many of you know as well, Dr. Mina Johnson-Glenberg from Embodied Games and the Department of Psychology here also raised her hand. And we started working on these pilot projects with students. How many students? Lots of students, like tons of students. Eventually ended up being something like 70 students working on different XR prototypes to serve as proof of concept of what can we do to serve the ASU community through XR. And so some of these projects we'll talk about today. Actually, are you here, Braden, to talk about the Career Arcade? I don't, oh, here he is. Braden, you're in the Career Arcade, it looks like. Are you?
Oh no.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay. I am in the Career
I'll
Arcade.
spotlight you.
All right, hey everyone.
Hi.
I'm Braden Jenkins. I've been working here for just over a year now, and I'd love to tell you about the Career Arcade. So I'll go ahead and have it kind of playing behind me as I talk about it. So the Career Arcade is the first step towards a comprehensive, accessible guide for students' future careers. Career exploration will no longer be a 20-question quiz, but an immersive, impactful experience. Instead of reading about what a certain career does, step into their shoes and experience it yourself. With this, we believe Career Arcade is a vision for what learning can become in the future. Behind me is the Planetary Science Room, where you can learn all about what it is to be a planetary scientist and related fields. So we do not see the Career Arcade as a rigid set of rooms crafted by experts, but rather a platform for the community to share ideas and stories. We believe this is the best way to create inspired, passion-driven experiences covering a wide range of careers. This community includes freshmen doing research on their own and bringing their ideas to the table, upperclassmen and alumni letting their experiences be heard and passing on advice, and faculty or those in the field sharing their hard-earned wisdom with the next generation. Oops. Going further, this community extends to all who are excited to change the way we learn and explore. In order to facilitate this, we've been creating the Career Arcade with this in mind. You don't have to be a programmer or an engineer to contribute. Behind me are the tutorials that we've been working on so that anyone can hop in Unity and create for themselves, bring their ideas to life. Looks like my virtual background is messing with it a little bit, but the Career Arcade is really exciting.
Thanks, Braden. So the Career Arcade and what Braden has been showing here is a set of exploratory rooms, basically, that show what it's like to be. We're starting with planetary science, construction management. We've got a room for public health sciences so that students can kind of explore through those and see what does it mean to be an expert in that domain. What are the things that you'll need to learn? What are the tips and tricks? And we'll have recorded videos of students passing down tips and tricks from senior to freshman, and faculty who will talk passionately about the things that they're working on. So that's really cool because we can put subject matter experts into the same room as the students who are exploring. But how do we blow this wide open? Well, what Braden and I have, and his team, dozens of students working on this project, have been doing is creating this as a platform infrastructure for others to insert their own open world exploratory rooms into this. What I want to have happen is for an ASU 101, having the students actually go through these sets of rooms, but then themselves being tasked with, in their grouping, coming up with the next generation of a room. They can go out and they can interview different subject matter experts, either alumni or faculty. They can interview students who are more senior than them, and they can together create kind of a mood board of what does it mean to be in this career, right? What are the kind of interactive experiences that would be fun, right? That kind of thing, putting it all together and then kind of drafting out what would that look like. Now from there, they'll maybe create a few documents, maybe we'll figure out some templates that they can work on. And if they are so interested, we'll work with them to make those rooms a reality at scale, right? How do we do that at scale? We can have video tutorials, etc. We can immerse them in the Immersive Creation Studio as well. If they're not so interested, that's okay too. The work that they've done to create that mood board serves as a docket of work for our student workers to then go in and build that room to express what it is to be in that career of the future. Why do we want to do this? The whole point of the exercise here is getting the students in ASU 101 to imagine themselves in the career of the future, right? Do they have to lock into that career? No, right? Are the rooms that they explore in the career arcade, do they have to be the careers that the students go after? No. But to get them to think about how they fit into the pattern work of society from an early point in their ASU career, will get them to think and ask the right questions. I think they're the right questions of what should I be doing to prepare myself? What should I be thinking about? Whom should I be asking about and resourcing from? And hopefully the Career Arcade can give down some wisdom as well from the ages of, well, I wish I had known about these clubs and organizations that could have connected me better, these research opportunities. I wish I had known to pay attention in Physics 101 because that came back to bite me later, right? So these kinds of messages from the future are things that students can pass down to each other through the Career Arcade, messages from the future of subject matter experts that can pass it down. And to receive those messages, the ASU 101 students going out and interviewing these people and having a canvas for them to throw this into and onto. So this is the vision we have. I understand it's pretty ambitious. Whatever, we're going to try it anyway. In addition to that, we can also embed different educational interactions as well. Mina Johnson-Glenberg is very interested in these sorts of educational exhibits, interactive exhibits. Here's one of them that she's built, and this would go in the construction management room.
Robert, you're muted.
And this is an example of one of the really great interactive exhibits that Mina's team has been working on, and some really fantastic work here. And I want to emphasize that this is work being done by students, ASU students, on building these sorts of exhibits that can communicate the meaning of why you should care about a tuned mass damper when you're learning about it in your classes. So it helps the educators with those sorts of material. So the Career Arcade is one of our big visions. I kind of think of it as our flagship, our main focus, but we're also working on several other projects as well to empower connection of ASU and students to understanding each other more richly. One of these is an AR Scavenger Hunt. Many of you know about Pokemon Go. We basically made Pokemon Go, but for the ASU campus. What this is students will go around prompted by their phone with a scavenger hunt type clues and go around and scan different landmarks to understand where there are different physical resources on campus. Like where is the Sun Devil Fitness Center, for example? Where is the Memorial Union? What kind of opportunities lie for you in those places? And so what we imagine is that departments, schools, will be able to program in their own sets of these scavenger hunt clues. And so Linda Nguyen and her team has been working on putting this together in a way that you can actually upload spreadsheets of your clues, longitude, latitude coordinates, and the clue itself you can write however you want, and anybody can do this. So staff members can do this, for example, and we would load those into our app, and then we can deliver it to the people whose ASU Right IDs match with, let's say, anybody in digital culture, for example, so we can show them where the Fab Lab is, and things like that. So this is a platform, again, to connect ASU students to their resources. Once COVID hit, I should emphasize, right, or whatever, we started in March 2020, and then COVID hit, right? So we started to think about, well, what are the digital opportunities as well that we can provide? And so we're also embedding QR codes as scavenger hunt locations as well, so you can have students navigate through digital resources as well. But as COVID restrictions begin to lift responsibly, then we can also have more on-campus scavenger hunting going on as well. So this is really, really fun stuff that we're working on here as well. So thank you to Linda and her team of students as well for really pushing this project forward. And our bottleneck right now is we're waiting for clues. So we need to figure out how to get those clues into the how to get the clues from the community, because the system is ready for it. Virtual Campus 360 is a project that Bill Ayton and I have been working on with with students to model the 3D campus and to layer it with photospheres of different resources that I think you sense a theme here, right? Of things that ASU students can engage with. And so giving them the sense of where different things are on campus, we have the ability to put these 360-degree photospheres and ambisonic sounds as well, wherever you would like them to be on campus. And you can have buildings that have clusters of these photospheres so you can navigate through them. It's kind of like Google Maps, right? However, what makes it different than Google Maps is it's owned by us being the community at ASU. So we can really drive the narrative and to filter down to what are the core things that each student needs. And again, we can filter by ASU Right ID. We can give students personalized guidance of what they need based on their program and even based on their person, right? So guidance from advisors can really direct students to what they actually need, where their classes actually are, and so on and so forth, and give them a simplified view. So this is another project that we've got going on, again, driven by student development. We have a tutoring simulation of what it means to go through tutoring when everything is on Zoom and how to be well prepared for it. You can't advance in the simulation until you get your pen and paper. You can't advance in the simulation until you get your book in front of you, open it to the right page so that you're prepared for the Zoom tutoring session. And then you go through the Zoom tutoring session. And I think we chose FOIL from algebra, first, outside, inside, last, as the fake thing that you would get tutoring from. But it's a kind of narrative that we wanted to show to students of, this is something that you can think about, some common sense stuff, right? That once they hear it, it's common sense. So how do you get things that they can hear? Well, we want to build these educationally immersive but mostly engaging stories that they can just watch and be part of, so that when they actually live their experience, common sense is actually common, right? So there's things like this. There's things like going to a professor's office hours and knowing the way to handle yourself and what questions to ask, and know that your professors are friendly. Most of us anyway, in an ideal world, right? But and with the right amount of coffee. But the point is, we want to create this palette so that people can enter in these sorts of stories into this as well. So this is another big project led by Ashik Sheikh was leading this project, and with a bunch of undergrads working with him here as well. And he's building this up, actually, I should say, as an immersive storytelling framework in Unity. We're building most of our projects in Unity. So you can have these visual programming ways of having ways to advance the story through different narrative elements, plot by plot by plot, and having them be limited by what you pick up and access and do. There's a lot of games that are built this way as well these days, so we're kind of inspired by this. I should mention this one's available in virtual reality, but also in desktop. We tried to make these, and the Career Arcade as well, virtual reality and desktop, so that people can access these things whether or not they have these headsets or not. COVID-19 AR experience is developed by Mina and her team of students, building this with input from ASU subject matter experts from the College of Health Solutions, School of Human Evolution and Social Change, and the Biodesign Institute of what does it mean to make good choices about, like, for example, wearing a mask, for example, taking the right kind of transportation and keeping the right kind of social distance when you're trying to make decisions throughout your day. As you make those decisions, your probability of infection goes up or goes down, usually up, depending on the decisions that you make. And it's based on scientific guidance that's coming from the experts at the College of Health Solutions and the School of Human Evolution and Social Change, but it's generally a big thing there. So yeah, that's another project, again, built by students. And then finally, we got this one dropped on our lap actually as well, which was very interesting. And we jumped on the opportunity to participate in this one, was that ASU Commencement for fall 2020 was slated to go virtual. And when we heard this, we're like, oh, well, that's actually, it's very unfortunate, right? Because students have worked so hard to get to this point in their academic career that they're graduating now. And we wanted to give them a gift, a sense of fulfillment for things that they've done. And so we chatted about what was possible to do in this short time frame. And the students really drove the conversation here. We had graduate students who graduated from ASU talking about, what does it mean to graduate? How much do they care or not care actually about certain things? And how do we deliver that sense of virtual experience in an augmented reality format? It's not enough. It would never have been enough, no matter what we did. But we wanted to do something, right? And so we worked with the Enterprise Marketing Hub. The students, as you can see, filmed Dr. Crow with Kinect cameras and lighting and green screen, filmed Mark Searle, filmed Samin Levinson with a mace. And we put this together as an augmented reality product that people could download on their smartphones. And when it came time for commencement, it all launched at the same time across the world, wherever you were watching this from. If you're interested now, you can also download this app, this ASU Commencement app, fall 2020, and you can see what the students have built in a very accelerated time frame, I would say, of two months to put this together. So it's a really cool format actually, because it shows us we can actually do this. Students can put together these sorts of delivery formats to engage with a wide audience. Also recently, we've been working on this Dreamscape augmented reality app. It's a companion app to the Dreamscape virtual reality experiences, which I'm not going to say too much about because it's not my place to reveal anything. Suffice it to say that these students have been working very hard to build a augmented reality app that lets the experiences of the Dreamscape Alien Zoo travel with the students wherever they go. So after they enter into the Dreamscape virtual reality experiences, in the short 12 to 15 minutes that they may have, after they go through the different acts of the story, they can go home and interact with the species further through their smartphone apps. And we've got a lot planned here that I can't really talk about too much, but it's really neat to be able to put the species inside of your living spaces, watch their animations, use it to draw out food webs and other layouts that you can then show to your instructor or to your friends, and share this sort of stuff socially as well, out and about. You can also access the data that you've collected inside of the Dreamscape experience as well. So you can use it to complete your homework assignments, for example, that, based on the data that you've collected inside of the Alien Zoo. So fantastic work that's being done by this. Alireza Berriman has been leading this team of 4 undergraduates to build this experience out. And it's been fantastic work to do so. It's been a really interesting project, actually, because it's been interfacing the students with parts of the university that they don't normally get to see, including Ed Plus and the quality analysis teams and data teams at Ed Plus and UTO, and having them understand like professional development and what it means to really do professional work with professional design at it when you've got such a high priority app at your hands. So yeah, it's been fantastic. Students have been building this stuff. And these are the pilot projects that we were working on since March 2020 of just students building these pilot projects that were that can serve as proof of concepts. These prototypes are proof of concepts that we can do these things. Now, we've learned a lot about stuff since those pilot projects. We've learned that students are capable of building XR experiences, professional XR experiences that can actually work. It's been a struggle, and we found out that process matters to make that struggle better, right? Teaming, the right kind of teaming, figuring out roles, responsibilities really matters. Upskilling people in those roles and responsibilities really matters. Deliverable tracking really matters. Quality analysis really matters. We need to structure enough time into our process so that we can actually QA test, play test what we're doing before we release. This sort of stuff, I mean, it's obvious in hindsight, right? I mean, any project manager will tell you you should have known this stuff beforehand, but we know it now, right? The students, more importantly, know it now because we put them in situations where they had to know this stuff. They made mistakes, no problem. We learn from it, we move on. So we've learned a lot. And again, most importantly, we've learned that students are capable of building XR experiences. So now where are we with all of this? Okay, we've learned this stuff, and at the same time, concurrently, Dan and Heather have been building up the Learning Futures Collaboratory physically. The LFC opened in October 2020 in the Creativity Commons, which was formerly known as the Computing Commons on ASU campus. It's next to the MU, next to the Sun Devil bookstore, in between the two. And it opened in October 2020 physically, hosting the Dreamscape pod until February 2021. And then the Dreamscape pod moved across the way from the yellow part, which is where the LFC is, to actually where the camera is sitting right now, into across the empty gap there. The Dreamscape studio was under construction. Now it's complete, actually. And we're doing a Verizon 5G fit out in progress as well. You may have seen the news recently that there's a Dreamscape, Verizon, and ASU partnership for 5G empowered virtual reality as well. We've got future directions physically of building out the space with the Verizon Innovation Hub, a Dreamscape Learn Studio, us, the Immersive Creation Studio, and events and programs will begin very shortly as well. But this is a space for students to actually live in, well, not live literally, but live their projects in, and to actually work in and play in and socialize in once, again, we responsibly lift COVID restrictions and things get back to somewhat of a more physical happening. Yeah, I won't go into too much detail, but it's a really shiny space, and I am very inspired whenever I'm in that space. So kudos on Dan and Heather on really architecting the space outright, working with the university architects and putting things in the right place. So now, cool, right? But I wanted to then think about it from here of how do we scale? How do we then go from the things that we learned? How do we leverage that space and the resources that are being given? How do we use this to really scale responsibly? And the primary thing for me anyway, is how do we create atmospheres of growth? Deep technical growth for the students, social professional growth for the students, and awareness. What do we mean by awareness? Well, being aware of why being social, professional, technical actually matters, how it plugs in to the world, right? What it means to be socially responsible, what it means to consider diversity, equity, and inclusion in the things that we do, right? All of these are important. Then how do we stabilize our efforts to reduce crunch, which happened a lot with these pilot projects? Crunch, for those of you who don't know, is when you basically run out of time. And so when you're running out of time, you make decisions that will get your stuff done. These are not bad decisions necessarily because they are prioritized to get stuff done, but you sacrifice a lot of other meaning when you're in crunch time, other things that could have been done, other opportunities that you could have had. So then how do we scale our efforts so that we can stabilize our efforts and reduce crunch? And then how do we scale our efforts to handle incoming workloads at scale? Because we expect that there will be a bunch coming our way. And my answer to that is guilds and platforms. Guilds are about depth. We want focused topic areas for deep exploration, which are driven by student needs and mentored by faculty or PhD students, or other students, of course. We don't need to, limit. But driven by the student leads is an operative there. And then the guilds will pursue endless activities, as well as workshops and micro-credentialing. And I'll talk about each of these in more detail now. The focus areas we're talking about. Students, if you're interested in joining us, or if you're already part of the Immersive Creation Studio, look at this chart, right? Faculty, if you're interested in mentoring in any of these guild focus areas, look at this chart. This isn't a finalized chart. We may move these things around. We'll listen to all of you of what makes sense here, but you can be part of these guilds. Figure out which one makes sense for you because you can deeply commit to learning inside of these guild focus areas of modeling materials animation, cloud infrastructure, immersive web design, game engine, sound, narrative, UI UX design, project management, data, haptics, media capture, user research. If you're interested, you can join these guilds. Now, what will you do in these guilds? You see, I've listed out some topic areas, some topics that you might want to think about, but you'll be using this to pursue endless guild activities. You'll be in a social group where you can learn from each other and work on these activities, such as, for example, in the modeling materials and animation, modeling the ASU campus buildings, for example, and all the different ASU campuses. It's an endless activity because the campus continually changes, and it's an endless activity because you can always do it at a different resolution or at a different art style, and that kind of thing could be an endless activity that you could use to continually improve yourself and your understanding. And you can see that we've thought about other endless activities for other guilds. In addition to that, to actually commit that upskilling to each other, you can take turns teaching each other new concepts and new topics inside of that guild so that you can pursue some depth together. You can record these so you can do it asynchronously, but preferably you do the synchronously as well, and hopefully physically in the same space eventually, right? The leads, the mentors, the guild members all together will collaboratively form a schedule of topics. And you could double dip and overlap this with your class materials if you're a student, right? So you could learn your class stuff in this context so you can apply it to your classes. Or you could even, if you have a presentation to give in your class, just give it at a guild and give it to your class. They won't know, right? What about instructors? Instructors can also double dip. You can use the guild workshop material to create your own course material. Any tutorials, any lectures that are recorded, any mini exercises that you might do in the guild workshops, you could use in your courses as well. So there's a lot of double dipping that you can do, which would speak to that we don't want these guilds to take away from the stuff that we're doing in MESA, for example, with these XR initiatives, or from the digital culture curriculum. We want to empower it. We want to give it a place, a meaningful, productive outlet as well. And so these workshops can be that kind of intersection that we've got of getting these skills intersected. As they learn, as you learn through your guilds, you can also demonstrate competency to each other and earn badges to assert that you have mastery of a concept. So the leads, the mentors, the guild members can all collaboratively form what should be credentialed, and you can earn these badges. Dan and Heather are working on a badging system that's tied in with the UTO infrastructure so that you can keep track of who has what. But it can be formal and it can be informal, figuring out who knows what at whatever granularity you feel makes the most sense to show that you know this thing. And it can be a source of pride, a source of a sense of accomplishment once you know a thing and you have that badge, right? So it could be, it's something for students to work through and on and give them that sense of fulfillment, that achievement as they move forward. So students in the guilds will work on that. And then the whole, or not the whole point, but the whole point is actually the stuff before, okay? The whole point is that we want the students to be learning deeply about their technical skills. But now with those students who know these technical skills, and not just technical, I guess, there's also social professional skills involved in the guild work, but they can group up from multiple guilds to work on projects. Now that they have the expertise and the demonstrated competency through the credential system, they could show that they have what they need to tackle their challenges. For example, creating a career arcade room. For example, building the next phase of the Dreamscape Learn app, right? For the first phase of the Dreamscape Learn app, I'll say, the students were learning Unity and augmented reality from somewhat of a ground zero because of capacity and because of where the students were. It would have been so great if we had a guild that was able to rapidly upskill them in these areas, or even better yet, if they were coming out of the guild and into that project in order to actually operate on it. So, which is no problem, because we got it done and it was really fantastic work. But this sort of community infrastructure can help the students, give them a sense of footing, right, in order to approach these big challenges in front of them. So guilds, that's one way to scale, to create these atmospheres of growth that's very social in nature, but gives them a deep focus on technical and awareness. And I expect students would spend 50% of their time on guild activities and 50% of their time in project activities once they're in a steady state of knowing enough to work on other projects. Now, those projects will use platforms, which is the next part that I'll talk about. Platforms you should think of as starting points when we approach projects. So there'll be tools and templates and co-design workflows, best practices, patterns that people can use to start at these different projects. There can be technology integration for student data portals. Surprisingly hard, not surprising for those who know it, right? But integrating with the UTO infrastructure of student data is actually a big challenge. It would be great if we solved that challenge once and then applied the solution to many. That's what we'd like to do here. That's what we would try to do here through platforms. So we want to have these student data portals, 5G network cloud-based rendering, so advanced technology, basically advanced haptics and multisensory research, and throw those into platforms of co-creation so that they're ready to go. So those platforms where when we were designing our pilots, we had that in mind, actually. We were designing our scavenger hunt with this in mind, that we can use the underlying infrastructure of our scavenger hunt to build anything that needs AR virtual layers over the physical campus. The career arcade is built in such a way that we could create any kind of exploratory room, an open world exploration room that works on VR and desktop, and you can access on web through WebGL and WebVR, WebXR now. The virtual tutoring story, again, Ashik has been building this in a way that you could create any kind of immersive storytelling and interactive narrative delivery as well. So we've been thinking about how to build these scaffolds in place through the tools themselves in such a way that if you have know-how of the tools, you can build more things on top. But the tools are not enough. You got to use the tools, right? So we need to have workflows. And the thing about the workflows is that we want to create patterns where we deeply involve all the stakeholders, which may be students, maybe they may be faculty, they may be staff, they may be community members. We want the stakeholders to be involved so we can have workshops to show what's possible, or even charrettes to understand and align the values, co-design sessions so people can build together. So we could involve the stakeholders. And then once we do, we could develop the project as well by leveraging these existing tools and platforms, leveraging the guild proficiencies, and extending the tools and platforms and extending the guild proficiencies, because, hey, we don't need to be static, because we are the ones who built these tools and platforms, and we are the ones who are, scheduling these proficiencies. So we get shaped by the process workflows that we're working in. And this can actually inform some of the basic research that we do, for example, at Meteor Studio, but also at other labs across the ASU campus. It can stimulate further research by saying, hey, there's a need in order to make these workflows work better. For example, like the 5G cloud rendering type pipelines or streaming of point clouds or things like that, right? So these workflows go back and forth, but eventually they're there to make things happen. And so we'll have patterns of work that will make things happen. So this is my last slide now of how do you get involved with the Immersive Creation Studio. Students, look out for a recruitment email. We're going to do summer internships and we're going to blow it wide open. We're going to blow it wide open. So definitely keep an eye on your email and we will be recruiting. We're also launching a Designing for Dreamscape class soon, which is in fall 2021. I'm co-teaching this with Ed Finn. We're going to have folks from Dreamscape also giving guest lectures. Walter Parks is super excited about this, and we're super excited to have him as well on board with this class. Faculty, staff, if you see yourself as a guild member, whether expert or not, we'd love to have you, right? We're only paying students at this time, but that might change if we get an influx of funding. For others, could we have an influx of funding? Just kidding. But well, not kidding, actually, whatever. Project opportunities, subject matter expertise, lived experience, et cetera. There's lots of ways to contribute to these projects. And so as you see things coming up and us asking, for content to fill these rooms, we'd love your support in doing that. And most of all, I think we'd like your support as you hear about these things to talk us up, in the right circles to make sure that this does happen and is a priority, because I do believe that this Immersive Creation Studio is going to change the way that we think about education, both as its product, but also as its process of upskilling students through these guilds to build skills at the intersection of the skills of the future, to get them to work with each other and to really be that next generation of storytellers, be that next generation of creators, thinkers, and doers. Thank you, that's my talk. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, Robert, just a comment. Just wanted to thank you for the presentation. It just opened my eyes. I didn't know this thing existed anywhere on our campus.
You're more than welcome. And yes, we've been somewhat of a skunk works because the danger of opening up too early, Sarma. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that comment.
It's very, very nice. And I hope to, and this is something I've been thinking about for quite some time, but my interest in AR is on the technology side, on making things run on distributed systems and on cell phones and things like that, right?
Yes, and we need it, right? Yeah. This will drive that sort of research as well. Yeah. And we can definitely partner and source you as a partner as we approach, for example, Verizon and folks on these.
The question I did have for you is, you said something about coursework. Somebody like me needs to learn how to develop AR applications. So do you have any of that?
We will have community upskilling workshops as well as tutorials. Unity itself, by the way, as a plug for them, Unity's mission is they say, we believe the world is a better place with more creators in it. Mm-hmm. And they've created a bunch of different tutorials to get people there. Unreal also, to be fair, Epic Games has also done the same thing. Unity has built credentialing systems. They've invited me to serve as a subject matter expert on their certification exams and things like that. And so they do have these pathways of learning as well. But also at ASU, through the guilds, we're planning to have these open community workshops for anybody who wants to participate and learn more about how to build this stuff.
That'd be very useful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great presentation.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Catalina is asking if the presentation is recorded on YouTube. It is recorded and it is distributable, and you're free to distribute any content that's on these slides. Any other questions? We're at time, but I'm happy to stay on. But let me check if YouTube has anything. I don't see anything there. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great day. Bye. Okay, we're off of YouTube.